Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second edition of Elite Franchise Live, Franchise Her Future. I'm Jodie Marsh, and I'm going to be your host this evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Commercial Director at Elite Franchise, and I've been working closely with our incredible panelists to bring you a session packed with insights, advice, and inspiration, specifically tailored to empower women to enter and lead in the franchising space. Before we dive in, I'd like to extend a big thank you to our sponsors this evening, Stagecoach and Drama Kids, who, without their support, this event wouldn't even be possible. And a special thanks to Lisa Stead for not only sponsoring, but also giving up her time to be with us this evening.
You're welcome.
Let me just firstly introduce our amazing panel. Firstly, as you've already met, this is Lisa Stead from Trafalgar Education, the mothership of Stagecoach and Drama Kids. Say hi, Lisa.
Yeah, guys.
And then we have Pip Wilkins, the CEO of the BFA. Oh, I'm sure everybody knows by now, Pip. Susie McCafferty, the CEO of Platinum Wave Franchising.
Hi, everyone.
Jill Dawson from Molly Maids, Burton upon Trent and Derby.
Hello.
Hi, Jill.
Hi.
And finally, last but not least, Sam Taker from Turtletop, Staffordshire.
Hello.
So just before we begin, I know you guys can't come off mute, so I've got to please keep yourselves on mute, but you can't do this on this beautiful new system that we've got. Just for the panelists, if we can try and keep as quiet as possible whenever other people are speaking. We will be opening up for a Q&A at the end. So anybody that's joining us live, please feel free to pop your questions into the chat box as we go, and we'll make a note of them, and I'll invite you to submit any additional questions at the end also. The session is being live streamed, but it's also being recorded. So if you'd like to watch it back or share it, the on-demand recording will be sent out shortly afterwards. I'm super excited to bring together different voices and perspectives on what franchising looks like for our female entrepreneurs. The session is going to be discussion based, and I have a range of questions which I'll steer towards each panelist based on their expertise. Following the Q&A, we have a new section, a chat with a hat, where the lovely Harvey Tuck from the Franchise Show and Franchising Brand Stories will be joining us to debrief on today's topic. So whether you're a franchisor, a current franchisee, or someone exploring franchise opportunities, I hope today sparks new ideas and possibilities for the future. So let's get started, and I hope that you all leave feeling informed, inspired, and empowered to take your next steps into the world of franchising. So I'm going to kick off with one of the first questions, which is going to go over to the lovely Pip Wilkins. And Pip, from your perspective at the BFA, how has the role and presence of women in franchising evolved over the past decade?
Well, you know that I am absolutely the stats queen. So I pulled out my British Franchise Journal and had a look at what our survey says. And women now make up 40% of the overall franchisee population, which is a huge increase.
Wow.
So back in 2005, when you look at that, we've had a 20% increase since then. What is more interesting, I think, is what's going on now. So we are seeing more and more women coming into franchising. So when you look at the survey that we did recently, new recruits, there were 34% were women, and that's up from 16% 2 decades ago. So I think that franchising has become a much more inclusive place, and we've really done a lot through what we do at the BFA. So we obviously have our Empowering Women in Business event, which has been running for 11 years now. It's quadrupled in size, and organizations like EWIF, which is encouraging women into franchising, have done loads to promote the sector and make it more accessible. When we look at what the barriers were when we first started looking at why there weren't more females in franchising, it wasn't the typical things that you thought. Access to finance was part of it, but most of it was around mindset. It was around confidence. It was about accessibility. And I think as a sector, we've done loads to address that, particularly in the last 10 years.
That's really, really interesting, Pip. I mean, do you think there's anything that we could do more as a sector to, try and get over this, I suppose, almost like imposter syndrome that women have, that they can't do it, and give them more confidence?
I think the key thing is education and awareness. It's sharing success stories, taking some of the shining lights that we do have in the franchising sector, and really showcasing them. Because I think when you've seen someone else do it, it inspires you to do it. So looking at making it more public about the really fab females that we have in our sector is going to be the critical thing, for others to find it more accessible. And what better way to do that than with 6 awesome women today?
Well, I'll be an awesome woman. Susie, so as someone who's built and scaled brands previously, where do you think that the industry still falls short in attracting and supporting women?
To be honest, I think, as Pip has said, the industry has come a long way. Rather than falling short, it's stepped up. It's come a long way in the last sort of 10 years. I remember the days 26 years ago when I started in franchising, of getting on a plane down to London to see my franchisees on the 6 o'clock in the morning flight, and it was full of men on those planes. Nowadays, I'm jumping on those planes, they're full of women, and I'm actually going to see more female franchisees than I've ever seen before. So I think, it's just keeping on top of the things like the education, showing more women that you can actually have a business and a family. We've got loads of examples in our industry now of multi-award-winning female franchisees who've absolutely taken the jump into franchising and have built these credible businesses that have genuine value. Same for franchisors as well. So I think, in terms of falling short, it's more keeping up the education, it's keeping up the finance options that will enable more women to start businesses. And the thing that I spend more time doing nowadays is mentoring, really sharing the peer-to-peer support and getting the message out that this is actually a community that actually helps women thrive. I think as women, quite often our natural reaction is to jump in, get your head down and feel like you've just got to figure it out. Well, in franchising, that's definitely not the case. We have this wonderful sharing, collaborative community of females as well as males. We've got a massive, collaborative community here that are all willing to share and help people get on in franchising.
Brilliant answer, Susie. So Lisa, you've helped shape franchise operations at scale also. What roles do you think that large brands play in changing the narrative around female franchise ownership?
I think that sort of filters into what both Susie and Pip have said. We have over 300 franchise territories and 85% of them are run by women. That is an amazing group of people who have phenomenal success stories. And it's using those success stories and as a franchisor, getting those success stories out more, and also getting those people to have partnerships directly with people like the BFA, like Empowering Women in Business, like Empowering Women in Franchising, like Elite, and getting those messages not out from our own platforms, which only reach maybe people who are interested in Stagecoach or performing arts, but also to those that are outside of our direct network. And I think getting that message out is really important. And empowering those people to know that, hey, what you're doing is awesome. You can shout about it. You can blow your own trumpet. You can say you're epic, because that's okay. That's not arrogant. That's not being full of yourself. It's just being true. And it empowers others to feel the same way.
No, definitely. What do Trafalgar, Stagecoach and Drama Kids do to share this message out there about what the fantastic things that your franchisees are doing?
So most of our campaigns, whether they be from our own direct platforms or whether they be through other franchising platforms or business platforms or PR direct platforms, are all about stories. So we do highlight stories of our individual franchisees. We promote good news within our own bulletins. So when they send that information through to us, we are, that's a really good one. Let's pick up on that story. Let's run with it. And within our own network, we also work to encourage those women to get that work-life balance, to understand that, hey, you can still run a business alongside running a family, that there is a way to do that, that if you're planning for a family, we have some great franchisees who actually came to us and say, look, we're going to be planning for a family next year. How do we make this work with our business? And that was so amazing that our franchisees came to us to say, we want you to be part of our family planning plan. And we have a section within our operations manual that says, okay, this is if you're planning to get pregnant, if you're planning to adopt, if you're planning to foster, how do you do that alongside running a business? How do you make sure that your business is going to continue and allow you to take time out if you need to take time out? And we try and publicize those stories as well.
That's brilliant, Lisa. I just forgot to take myself off mute for a second, then I had to unmute to stop the echo. So no, it's really good, and it's really encouraging and really empowering to hear all the stories that are coming out from Stagecoach recently, and certainly for Drama Kids as well. So Sam, coming over to you now. What drew you to franchising in the first place? And what barriers did you face as a female franchisee entering the children's activity sector?
So I'd already worked within another franchise company, and it was a business sector that I'm super passionate about and really interested in. So it was quite easy for me to sort of know which route I wanted to go down when it came to having my own business. And I looked into opportunities of franchising and also setting up on my own. But what attracted me more to taking on a franchise is the branding, the setup costs, and the support that you get. And that support is constantly ongoing as well. It's not just through the initial stages. It's forever there, and it's forever evolving and becoming better. There's quite big, exciting things coming ahead for Turtle Tots. And if I'd done that on my own, as my own business rather than taking on the brand, then my business may not evolve. I think franchises and brands, there's always one step ahead of the game as well. And I think that a lot of customers tend to buy into a brand a lot more because of that reason. I didn't really come across many sort of challenges because swimming franchising is quite female heavy, and I knew that was the sector I wanted to go down. I wanted to have a swim school, and so when I looked into the sort of different brands, a lot of it was down to territories and the area. I wanted to have my own home territory, so that was quite important for me, but was quite challenging when looking into the different brands. But what really sort of took me on board into Turtle Tots is their sort of like ethos and what they do as a brand, and how they support you as a franchisee.
No, that's brilliant, Sam. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, Jill, coming over to you now. You've been quiet so far, so I'm coming over to you. Easy one for you. How did you make the leap from full-time employment into becoming a business owner?
Okay, so I had actually been involved in businesses previously, but they were very not female friendly. So I was traveling a lot. There was no consideration for the fact that I had 2 young girls, and so I just decided to move away from like a partnership with other people, and looked around and saw the Molly Maid model, and went and met the guys, and it just sounded perfect, and it actually has it's been everything that I hoped. So when I bought the franchise, I had a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, and I've managed to run a really successful business, build a successful business, and be nearby for my kids, pick them up from school every day, be involved in their gymnastics. I wasn't in full-time employment before because I worked for myself, but I was in partnership with other people. What franchising has done for me is actually given me what I was looking for, to start with. I've been able to rise the ranks in terms of sales and grow the business, and we employ lots of people now, and I've been there for my kids the whole way through.
That's really great to hear, Jill. And I know we talked before this session, and that I'm not sure if I've got this right, but haven't you broken the record for the quickest time to get to where you are, or something like that, with Molly Maids? You've done it in such a short space of time.
Yeah, so it has been. We've not quite got the record that we're looking for yet. We're hoping to get it this year. In terms of turnover, to get there, the fastest in the UK that's been done. I mean, we've done it a little bit differently too. So I bought the franchise initially. My husband came in because, again, we're really both family orientated. We do, we want to be around our two girls. They're fantastic. So it made sense to bring him in, and he's come in, and now we've got another sort of 4 or 5 supervisors that work for us. So that's really enabled us to, they run the business with our direction, but they all know the goal. I won't say what it is, but like in terms of turnover, we're really chasing it this year, and we should get it, which is fantastic.
No, it's really, really well done. You should be really proud. My echo's terrible. Sorry. Really proud of yourselves, and you've done that with 2 young children as well. So well done, well done.
Thank you.
Susie, what are the most common pitfalls you see women make when trying to enter franchising, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to what I was saying before. A lot of us think we have to do it, and we have to do it all ourselves, when actually we don't. So one of the things I see when we're mentoring franchisees actually is that they can delegate. You don't need to do it all. In the early stages, it is very hands-on deck, but actually delegating things that you don't need to do can really help you get on when building your franchise. The other thing we see women struggling with is that balancing business life and personal life. Quite often we are working parents or carers, or have elderly parents, or challenges like that, and I think we do tend to pick up a lot of those things at home as well. So a lot of what we do is work with franchisees to help them find a new working rhythm, which might be quite different to the corporate world they were in before, or the job that they were in before, and really give themselves permission to enjoy their business and their family life, and make this something that actually gives them the type of freedom that they've never had before. The other sort of, not pitfall, but challenges is, a lot of franchise owners, not just female franchise owners, don't have the financial acumen quite often if they've not come from a business background or a financial background. So helping people understand the numbers has really helped people build much bigger businesses. It's the old adage of you can't grow what you don't know. So helping franchisees understand the numbers and the data in the business from the early stages has really helped lots of female franchise owners build much bigger businesses. Same goes for franchisors, understanding the data in their business and helping them and their franchisees make better decisions.
That's really interesting, Susie. Thank you. So, sticking on the finance subject, Lisa, what practical tips would you give to someone who's looking at getting into franchising and looking to finance that, or understand their options on how they can actually, get involved?
So I know that we are not the only franchisors who have this. We, as franchisors, have access to the right people to speak to. So if you just wander into your high street bank, yes, they're going to be able to help you in terms of loan funding. Yes, they're going to be able to help you and talk to you about financing. But what's really helpful is if you speak to somebody who understands franchising and financing at the same time. They get how a franchise agreement is structured. They understand how an ethical franchisor should behave. And there are high street banks that have franchising departments. We work directly with NatWest and HSBC. I know that there are other banks who do the same thing. And we have a direct contact with somebody in their franchising team who has already read our franchise agreement, who has already seen some amazing business plans from really successful franchisees who've gone through our process. And so they know the questions to ask. They know the things to lead someone towards putting into a business plan and suggest perhaps they want to look at this or want to look at that. And they can really support them. And what we also have, and I know that we're not the only ones out there who have this, is access to non-high street banks. So there are other funding options in terms of business development loans. And we work closely with some of those guys because some of the high street banks do need deposits. You know, they need to have some collateral from yourself when you're looking to invest, but not to be afraid of asking all the questions, even if you think they're really, really dumb questions. I love it when a franchisee comes through, or a prospective franchisee comes through with pages of questions, even if they are really seemingly insignificant and daft questions, because that just shows that someone really wants to work with us, and we get the opportunity of helping them to learn and to grow and to develop. And we know people are coming at us, like Susie said, with little to no financial acumen, and that's okay. We can teach that. You don't need to be scared of it. We have models, we have spreadsheets, we have templates that will help you through that, and we have business consultants who can sit with you and go, okay, let's look at this, let's take out the fear. I know when some people see numbers and they've done their maths GCSE or whatever they've had to do in school, it instills a bit of a fear of numbers and spreadsheets, but your franchisor should be able to smooth the way in those areas. And as both Pip and Susie have said, and the lovely ladies from who are franchisees have said, the support that you have from your other franchise, the rest of the franchise network, the other people, your colleagues basically, is amazing, because they've all been where you are. So just ask all the questions.
No, that's really, really great, Lisa. And it's really quite encouraging to hear what you guys do for your franchisees or your prospective franchisees. Pip, is there anything to add to that? Do you find that that's a standard across the majority of the franchises now that are in the UK, or is there more that we can be doing in that sector?
No, absolutely. I think, education is the key point in doing due diligence when you come on board. And as Lisa said, there's so much free advice. We have a free prospective franchisee certificate that people can do if they're looking to invest in a franchise, that will give them kind of due diligence journeys. But I think, the banks are supportive of franchising. There is a British Business Bank loan that people can access for lower cost franchise opportunities. But we've seen like emerging sectors, with more and more in the children's activity space, but more in the personal services sector. It's boomed in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. And just there is a lot more access to education and access to advice. Franchising is really inclusive. We all talk about it as a franchise family, and it's about finding your tribe. When you come in, you'll be welcomed into a network, and the best piece of advice that anyone can get is to talk to other franchisees, people that have done it before you, understand the challenges that they faced, the due diligence journey that they went on. They'll be happy to share.
No, that's really, really great. And would you say that if somebody was approaching a franchise brand then and they weren't willing to introduce them to some of their franchisees, then it maybe should start to set off some red flags? Is that something 100%. That you think is like, some people should
Absolutely.
Look out for?
Transparency in the relationship is critical right from the outset. We laugh and joke. It's a bit like a wedding, isn't it? You wouldn't, date somebody unless you'd kind of met their family, and that's what it is. It's going in and being able to understand everything about a brand. If a franchisor isn't openly disclosing information and sharing information with you, introducing you to franchisees, the support team that are going to look after you, then that is a huge red flag.
Okay, yeah, it's got really good tips there from both Lisa and Pip. So I'm going to move on to involving the leadership in franchising a little bit, take a little bit of a sidestep. So I'm going to come back to you, Susie. So having been a franchisor previously yourself, what leadership traits do you think have been most important to your success? And how do you think women bring something different to the table?
Yeah, so in terms of leadership traits, the first thing you've got to think about is, unless you're in the mindset of franchising, has to be a win-win for both parties. You're never going to get on. And that's even more important in today's climate, where we've got the whole effects from Brexit and pandemics and recruitment costs going sky high, utility costs going sky high, and franchisees on the front line are under a lot of pressure to actually make profit because of all the forces that are against businesses these days to make money. So a good franchisor is one that understands that unless their franchisees make money, they'll never be a good franchisor. So that win-win mindset is a really important leadership trait. Another one is a growth mindset. Again, franchisors who can see ahead, who innovate, who have the foresight to be able to say, you know, I can build a much bigger business if I have successful, happy franchisees. Those with the growth mindset are those that succeed for the long term. And then those that embrace the whole culture of franchising, which is, in my view, engage, collaborate, and communicate. Massive leadership traits that if you don't engage with your franchisees, if you don't collaborate and get feedback, and if you don't communicate properly with your franchisees and allow that two-way communication, then you'll never thrive as a franchisor. So I think where people really, women really do bring things to the table, again, is that ability to actually, you know, engage with their franchisees, empathize with their franchisees, and really take people on the journey. It's that listening skill. But also, I think women are very good at multitasking as well. So juggling lots of balls as their franchise or brand grows, I think is really, really important.
I like that analogy. Women are definitely the best multitaskers out there. Definitely, 100%. So, Lisa, what have you learned in your time, which is quite some time? You'll have to remind me how long it is at Trafalgar. What have you learned about developing inclusive leadership across a national franchise network?
I think the main thing is, and Susie alluded to there, is about we are really good at building relationships. In fact, if you're a really good franchisor, you're really good at building relationships, and building those relationships and communicating with your network openly and honestly and authentically. You know, we're not always going to get it right. You know, even the big franchises, we've been running 35 years as Stagecoach, 45 years as Drama Kids. In that time, we've got things wrong and we've not nailed it every single time. But being open and honest with your network about that, and encouraging them to be open and honest with their teams if things don't go as well as planned, and then say, you know, we're sorry, that didn't work. How are we going to build it? How are we going to get better? And responding quickly. So really being able to, and I hate this is a real corporate phrase, but pivot. If you've headed in the wrong direction, you've done something wrong, how can you really quickly turn that round, listen to the response of your network, listen to those people that you built relationships with, work with them directly, and then show strong leadership in saying, hey, we didn't do that right. We've listened. We're now going to do it this way. And we're listening to the feedback. We're listening to the communication. We're building on the relationships that we've already got with you. And we're authentically saying, hey, we're going to do it different this time. So having the courage to say, hey, we might not get it right every time, but when we don't get it right, we're going to listen and we're going to change and we're going to work with you to get it better. So I think being humble and authentic as a leader is really important. And hopefully that's something that we also empower our franchisees to be like with their teams too.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Lisa. That's really, really, again, insightful into the network and the brilliant things that you guys do. So, Pip, how do you think that organisations can better support women in their transition from franchisee to franchisor, or maybe even into senior leadership roles?
I think it all comes back, you know, and like I say every time, it's about education. You know, the franchising sector is a really welcoming place, and I think, you know, giving people the opportunity to see and walk in the shoes of the people before them, you know. So if you're coming into a franchise network, being able to see other people that have done it before you, and understand the challenges that they faced on that journey is important. We obviously do a lot from an educational perspective for franchisors in their growth journey, but the biggest thing for me is the connectivity piece. It's getting people together. And I think Susie mentioned it earlier. You know, one of the big things for me was to get a business coach and to get involved in some female leadership groups where you could mentor and share best practice with other people on the same journey.
Thanks for that, Pip. Sorry, I keep forgetting about me to go into mute because of my feedback, and I'm back again. No, that was really, really interesting. So I just want to remind anybody that's just recap over anybody that's joined us after we started. We will be opening up for a Q&A at the end of the session. So we're about three quarters of the way through now. So if you want to drop it, if you've got any questions, if you drop them into the chat to save me having 100 of them at the end of the session and trying to get through them all, so we can see what we've got coming. Yeah, you can feel free to add them into the chat box. So I'm going to come back to Sam now. The lovely Samantha. Sam, did you have a support system that we've been talking about, mentors and peers, when you began your journey as a franchisee? And how important do you think that was to you being so successful?
I did, yeah. So obviously I got my two franchisors, two lovely ladies, Caroline and Gabby, who are fantastic, and they put me in touch quite quickly with all of the head office team, who all play a really important role with making sure that the franchise runs smoothly. So I had some sort of like head office training. I then had another franchisee who had been with Toast Tots for quite a long time, and had grown a successful business, and she was my mentor, I think probably for a good few months, and then I think I just kept messaging. I still message her now every now and again, just checking in on things, making sure I'm doing it properly. But yeah, so that it was really important for me because I'd never ran a business before. So for me, I knew it's what I wanted to do. I knew it's the route I wanted to go down. But I didn't really know anything about business. This whole running the business was all really new to me, so it was really important that I had that guidance, and I am one of those that asks a million questions to make sure I'm doing it right, and it has really helped me. You know, in 2 years my business has been really successful, and we're growing quite quickly, and we're just about to open a brand new pool, and it's just crazy how we've grown so fast. But I wouldn't have done that on my own without the support network that I have. And then, like, we have development days every year where everybody gets together, they all share their ideas, we can all ask lots of questions, and people come in and give talks and give us a bit of mentoring and advice on different things that we might need to know to help run our business successfully. But everybody's always at the end of the phone and at the end of an email. So if I know that if I need someone, I can just send a message and I'll get a reply quite quickly. But it's great that there's that wide variety of support, and everybody has their own strengths in different things that you can go to get what you need. So yeah.
No, that was brilliant, Sam. Thanks for that, because I think networking as part of any franchise network is brilliant for bringing your franchisees together, because as we all know, women do like to talk, and putting us all in a room together and asking us all to talk is like our dream, you know. Yes.
Well, Christmas has come at once.
I know. All excited. So, Jill, what do you think are the most common confidence blockers that women have, and how do you think that people can overcome them? Because I'm sending that one to you, Jill, because I know how nervous you were about coming on this tonight, and you've overcome your fears, and you're here and you're talking. So, how did you do it?
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, you learn that you just have to put yourself out there. You know, when I bought the business 8 years ago this year, and I wanted to be successful. I wanted all the other things that went with it. To be with my family, but I wanted to make it a success. And I met all the guys, and we've got league tables, and I met everybody, and everyone was lovely, and I could take advice from them, and I kind of thought, oh well, like could I do that? Could I get to the top? And I think you mentioned it earlier, like that imposter syndrome. When I started being successful fairly early on with Molly Maid, and had their support, and they're so good at telling you that actually you're doing really well, and come on, what you're doing, and share it with other people. So I'm thinking, well, I'm not doing anything other than kind of what you've told me to do, but it's working. Like, so, they're going, yeah, but it's so successful and so quickly, have confidence. And I guess, like, over the years, I've realized even when things might feel a bit uncomfortable, so doing this felt uncomfortable, I'm okay now, I think. If you do it and you put yourself out there, it's often, you'll reap the rewards from it, and you get the success. So yeah, definitely, for me, that's why I'm here. And I've got 2 young girls, and I teach it to them as well. They're both gymnasts, and sometimes they've got lots of competitions, and they might have a bit of like a crisis in confidence, and it's like, come on, girls, look, you can do this. You've trained for it, have confidence in yourself, and go and smash it. And yeah, I guess that's why we do what we do, and put ourselves out there each day in uncomfortable situations sometimes.
Well, you have to, I think, don't you? When you've got children, you kind of have to practice what you preach, don't you? A little bit.
Massively.
You can't very well tell them to go and do it, and then you don't.
No, exactly.
Okay, so where do we go next? I mean, Pip, what trends do you see that could reshape the future of franchising, especially with regards to inclusion and female leadership?
It comes back to what I said already. We are seeing more emerging sectors and growth in the personal service sector, which is making franchising more accessible. And I think, the more we share success stories, the more we as an industry can promote the different opportunities that are there, and not look at franchising is there are systems that are more female dominant or male dominant. It's just about, franchising is a really great route for people to go into business. It has low failure rates, and it's something that's accessible for all. So it comes back, I keep saying the same thing, it's sharing the success stories of the people that have done it before and do it a lot. The more we get those out there, and the more people see the people that have walked the walk before them, the more accessible I think franchising becomes. I don't think, we've made massive strides towards the gender split. We said earlier, it's 40% female now in franchising. So it's been a huge growth area. And I think it will continue to grow the more people stand out and talk about their success, put their hand up and say, franchising's really worked for me. And we're doing that today.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Pip. So, Sam, I'm coming back to you again. Don't be surprised. I'm coming back to you. So, as someone, on the front lines, operating a franchise, and you've already said you're opening a new pool very, very soon, what changes would you like to see to better support female franchisees? What would you like to see happen?
I just don't think there's enough information out there for women to fully understand what it is to become a franchisee. I know that Jill's already mentioned, this sort of work-life balance, about being able to sort of look after your children and still do all the nice family things, as well as running a successful business. I just don't think maybe there's enough information out there for people to understand that. And then I know it's been mentioned again about women saying, well, we want to have a baby, and like bringing in their family planning into being able to run a business. And you can still do that. There's a lot of pressure put on women, I think, to have families and settle and things. And it's the sort of the old-fashioned thing of men are the ones that go out to work and the women stay at home, but that just doesn't exist anymore. Actually, there's so many more women out there that are successful and running successful businesses and actually earning more money than men or their partners. And actually they can still do that in franchising, as well as having a family and doing all those nice fun things. And I just don't think there's enough information out there. I'm just repeating myself, but I think it really needs to be made more clear that, yes, you can do this and you can do this and you can still have a successful business. I came back to the UK 3 years ago as a single mum, and you know, literally 3 years ago thought, oh my God, like I'm literally going to be this single mum and never have any money and not know what I was going to do and not be able to have a job that worked around being able to look after my children. Like I literally, you know, it was complete panic mode. And you know, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to buy this franchise. I'm going to do it. And that's what I've done. And, you know, and I've still been able to enjoy time with my children, and I've still been able to, you know, have that nice family home and those nice things and run my business. It's hard work. Don't get me wrong. It is hard work, but I believe it gets easier. But yeah, I just feel like maybe, you know, it just needs to be promoted a little bit more, that you can do these things and you can have these things and still be successful, and still be a strong, independent woman.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Jodie, one of our members just messaged me. She can't do the platform, and she said, can you thank the panel for me and say how great it is to join a chat at 6 p.m. She wanted to share a story. She had 2 female teachers who used to come to her classes when they were children, and they now teach for her franchisees. So one works for a franchisee, and the other found the business when she obviously went to classes when she was tiny, loved it so much that she's gone on to now teach as a teacher of a franchisee. So I think that's the thing. Franchising touches your life in lots of different ways, and it stays with you. You know, the experience that you get from franchise networks and the inclusion that you get means that people are seeking it out later in life. So for me, it all comes back to education and promotion.
Definitely. Thanks for that one, Pip. And thanks to whoever it was that messaged you, by the way. Ask her if she's got any questions. So, Jill, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, right, or even to your daughters, right, as they grow up and they're going to start out in franchising, what advice would you give them, to them or your younger self?
Don't deliberate, just do it. As I said earlier, it has given me more than I ever kind of dreamt of. So being, you know, they're now an age, so 11 and 8, that I can be there. I can take them to gym, I can take them to school, I can have the friends over. They haven't known anything other than Molly Maid, and they're really proud of me, and I hope that they will carry that on through their lives. So I hope that actually doing what I did and taking that leap has then helped to empower them as females. So yeah, when I sat and thought, you know, is this the right thing to be doing, and should I maybe just go on my own? There's no need to think about it. Everything is there. Molly Maid have been so supportive, like from the start, that all the processes is there. Follow the process. There's support from them, from other franchisees. It's a family. You know, we're really lucky. We have at least three meetings every year. And I always attend because I still learn things. So we are so lucky. But yeah, my advice would always be, you know, it's an amazing way to be able to run your own business and have autonomy, but have that backing, which it's such a support. It really is. So yeah, if you're thinking about franchising as a woman and as a, you know, and as a man, it's the same thing. I've been involved in 2 businesses previous, but this is, you know, it's hands down the best thing that I've ever done. So yeah, just go for it.
Thanks. Thank you, Jill, for that. I have just been informed that we've got a problem with the chat functionality at the moment, that it's not actually working. So if you have got any questions and you do happen to have my number or anybody's number on the panel, feel free to send them the question.
You know they're all going to come in now.
Yeah, anybody text Pip and ask them the questions, because I was thinking, right, we've got no questions. So Right, okay. Is that to a particular person, Pip, that question that came in for you?
No, I just said any questions for the panel, and she said, who are their role models? I can't write on the live chat.
There we go then. So go on. You want to take that, Sam? Do you want to go with that one?
Who are my role models? I don't really have one particular role model. I just think, in fact, no, I can't remember her name though. She was at the Elite Business Live last year or early this year with the glasses, long dark hair. I can't remember her name. But she, I loved her when she came out, and she was like, just so inspiring to say, you know, this is what I do, and this is why I do it, and this is how I've become successful. And I just think that a lot of entrepreneurs are all authors, and they're authors for a reason, because there's always a good story behind a good entrepreneur. But I'm gonna have to Google her because I can't remember her name.
You go and Google it. So, Pip, have you had any more in on your side, or
not yet? No.
I want to actually know who Lisa's role model is.
So I think in various parts of my life, I've had different role models who are exactly right for that time. But the one who's been there, well, since I was born, was my mum. This is so cheesy. Like, your mum's your role model. I'm so sorry. I apologize for the cheesiness, but she genuinely is. I do not think that I would be doing what I'm doing in the way that I'm doing it if it wasn't for her. And I think one of the main reasons was when I was growing up, people would tell me I was bossy. And she was like, no, Lisa, you have leadership skills. And people would tell me that I was arrogant. She would, no, you have confidence. And she was my biggest supporter in saying, don't be ashamed to blow your own trumpet. Don't be ashamed to say how great you are in certain areas, but make sure you empower others to do that in their life too. And because of that, everything I've tried to do, and I haven't always got it right, definitely not, but everything I've tried to do is empower others to be as confident to share their successes as I think my mum has been for me.
Thanks, Lisa, for that one. I think it was Shah Wasmond you were talking about, Sam. I think that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I love that.
I have had a question through on WhatsApp. Right, so I'm going to read it out, and then we'll decide who's going to be the best one to answer it. So, Laura from Birmingham, you've spoken today about the importance of access to franchise education among younger women. What concrete steps are franchisors and organisations like the BFA taking right now to redesign franchise recruitment to be more inclusive and resonate with women under 30? It's a long question.
I've got it. So what we're trying to do to resonate to women and just generally people under the age of 30, because that is more underrepresented than females in franchising, in the sense that less than 10% of current franchisees are under the age of 30. So we've recently done a Young Guns campaign, and we were looking at stats today. And if I'd have known someone was going to ask, I would have brought the stats. But, you know, we did a lot to find different ways of talking to that audience where they are. So most of our campaigns we do through like kind of Google Ads and LinkedIn and all of that. This we really focused in on YouTube and Insta, using video shorts of franchisees that are already in that are under the age of 30, but talking in their language. So instead of being in business for yourself but not by yourself, we have things like solo hustle, squad support, you know, get your business, we've got the keys, but really just trying to find different ways to communicate with them. From an educational piece, we are currently working with universities to look at running a pilot program where we can try and get franchising on an MBA program. It's our goal to do that within the next 2 years. But for us, it's trying to partner with universities, with business schools, to start talking about franchising at an earlier age. But for me, I'd urge any franchisor that's teaching toddlers, we've just seen an example of that, that came in on WhatsApp. Someone loved the classes so much that they've come back into franchising. So it just goes to show it doesn't matter what age you start educating people, that we can do it at any point. So I urge any children's activity provider to start talking to the children in their classes about franchising now.
Okay, Pip, thank you. We will do that.
Totally on board with that.
I've got time for one more question before we have to wrap up for our chat with the hat. And I have got it on WhatsApp. So thankfully, people have got my number. So from Katie Bullen at Active Marketing, do you think maternity cover of some sort should be an option for franchise territories to support more women? Or do any franchisees do this? ? They currently offer holiday cover and their franchisees love it.
There is another franchise brand. I'm sure it was in one of the EWIF award entries that we looked at in the children's activity space that is trialing it. Anything to encourage more people to consider franchising, I think, is great. But it is something that you are buying a business. You're not buying a job, and I think that's the differential. So it's definitely food for thought, and I'd be really interested to see from a franchisor perspective. So throwing that over to Lisa, what her view is.
Actually, that's fine, because this year we are working with a group of our franchisees who came to us with that very thing. They said, look, we want to have children, or we're looking to adopt, we're looking to foster. We know that we want to spend some time with our families. How do we do this? What are we going to do? And can you pay us maternity pay? We can't do that because, as Pip says, you're not buying a job. We don't have things like holiday pay and maternity pay and that sort of thing. And it's very difficult when you've got a brand as big as we have to have a pool of people who could provide maternity cover. Because what if you're in Scotland and my maternity cover lives down in Southampton? So it was very difficult to find that. But we are looking at ways how we can support our franchisees when they're in that circumstance, and not just maternity, sick as well when you're poorly, and helping them know that there are people who can step in, whether that's partnering with local franchisees, whether that's getting general managers, whether that's using their teachers. And we're looking at a training program and sort of section within our ops manual of saying, consider all of these options. These are things that you could do rather than us doing it for them. Yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. But we're in very early days of a working group of bottoming out how this could look as a franchise or supporting the franchisees. But yeah, watch this space. It'll be part of our award entry next year.
Idea to look at franchisees that maybe could caretake a neighbouring area. Support another franchisee that's maybe looking at doing that. But I've just seen in the chat that it's like franchisee point of views galore. So
yeah. I know. That's it. Pip, we need to be quiet so Sam and Jill can answer now for a second. They're desperate to give their point of view on this one. So ladies, over to you guys. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Just so from a franchisee perspective, that was something I really thought about when buying my franchise, about having more children and things like that. And I understood I was buying the business and not the job. But I've grown my team to be so strong now. They're all employed, so they get maternity pay if they were to have children. But because I've got a good team behind me, I know that not right now, it's all a bit full on at the moment, but potentially, this time next year, if I thought, right, I want to have another baby, then actually, I know that my team are so strong, they can hold the business together. And I've got that support of my team, because I've done that to then allow me to go and have probably not a very long maternity. But because the business can be quite flexible, I can do work at home whilst attached to a baby, or I can go into the office and have a little, Moses basket next to my desk if I really wanted to. And I just think you just make it work for you and your business. But, as long as you've created your team to be as strong as possible and you've got your business to a place where it can carry on without you for a little while, I think that, that's where you need to be at. It's not something you can't just buy a business and then go 2 months later, I'm going to have a baby. It doesn't work.
Thanks, Sam. Jill?
I haven't got too much to add to what Sam has just said, actually, but very much I think you're empowered as a woman to, within a franchise and the support network to create your own destiny. So if you know that that's part of your plan, then you go out and you look for the right people to give you that support. We have a fantastic management team now. And I know that if I needed to be off, I mean, I'm too old to have babies, thankfully. But if I needed to be out of the business, then I could do that and not worry about it. And that is such an immense feeling. And you do that with the support of the franchisor. So I found that, Molly-Maid was so good at they were so good at sort of helping you in what are your like short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals, and this is how you get there. So that planning it's already thought about by the franchisor, and they will help you achieve what you want to achieve.
Thanks, Jill. And I know, Susie, you wanted to add to that as well.
Yeah, just to add that, years ago, the thought of franchisees having families was something that used to fill franchisees and franchisors with dread. And what I would say is nowadays it's very much being the norm, being a parent. And actually, we've worked with loads of franchisees and franchisors to help get an initiative in place to make that happen. And a lot of it is down to planning, as has been said before, and actually delegation. So encouraging franchisees to only retain the parts they need to retain. The reality is you're buying a business, not a job. So you're still going to have to check in, and you're going to have to hold on to the important things like the finances, and checking in with your team members, etc. But actually, by delegating key roles and responsibilities to other key members, works. And it also encourages people to step up as well. So it can absolutely be done, and your business can actually thrive as a result of it, because you're letting go of the reins a little bit as well, encouraging your team to thrive.
Thanks, Susie. I think, and thank you, Katie, for that question that opened up a whirlwind of statements, and everybody wanted to comment on it. We've now run over the session by 6 whole minutes, and Harvey, the chap with the hat, is sat there waiting patiently to come and join me. So we need to be quiet now, ladies, just for a minute. But we've got that many questions, and I can see them all in our private chat here that are coming in from all of the guests. I've got some coming in on my WhatsApp. I promise you that I will get these questions out an email to the panelists and get their answers and get them back to I'll get them shared in some way so that you guys can all get the answers to the questions that you've been asking. We probably should have remembered that we were appealing to the female audience and left more time for chat on this call. Apologies to everybody that has had a question for us. Pip, I'm hoping that you've got a note of all the ones that you've had. I know your inbox is probably going off ping, 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 ping. So thank you to everyone that's joined us today for Elite Franchise Live, Franchisor Future. A huge thank you to our incredible panelists for giving up their time and sharing their valuable insights and it's taken a lot of collaboration to bring all this together. And I hope that you found it as inspiring and as informative as we all have. I will remember for next time, bigger chat section. As a reminder, the session has been live streamed, but it's also been recorded. So it will be available on demand as soon as we manage to download the link and upload it into the system. So if you've joined us late or you want to revisit anything, please keep an eye on your inbox, or we'll send it out to all the attendees shortly. For those of you that have been watching us on demand, we're sorry that haven't been watching us on demand. We're sorry that you couldn't be with us live, but the conversation doesn't stop here. Use the hashtag EFLive to carry the conversation on, and please feel free to share anything, any interesting questions or anything that come up after the event via LinkedIn or by Twitter or whatever, to get in touch, and we'll try and get the questions answered for you. Just to let you know, I'm actually really thrilled to tell you this part. The next Elite Franchise Live, which is now a quarterly event, is going to be live from Ideas Fest in Hertfordshire. So I am going to be on a stage, and I don't like being up there. So I would love to see you all there, to be in the crowd and smiling at me, especially you, Lisa. To be the first to hear more, head over to the Elite Franchise website and subscribe, and then obviously you'll get all the information and all the updates. So now we're about to start a chat with a hat. For those of you that you can't, feel free to stay with us if you want to. You can stay with us for the chat with the hat, but if you want to leave us, thanks again for being a part of today's session. Until next time, please take care and keep reaching for your next step in franchising. So hopefully this works, because the chat function wasn't working. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Harvey Tuck to the show. For the here he is, look at that, seamless. For the first ever chat with a hat. Harvey is the founder and the host of the Franchise Show and Franchising Brand Stories, and is here with me today to debrief on the session, share some key highlights from today's show, and hopefully not get too intimidated by all these powerhouse women that are around him right now.
Absolutely.
I gave him a brief that he needed to debrief it based on a female vision.
That's it.
So,
That's it. I'm going to put my female head on the best that I can. Well, look, hello and welcome to the first ever Chat to the Hat. It's the Elite Franchise Live After Show. And this is where we get under the hat of the latest edition of Elite Franchise Live. So this week, the topic was Franchise Her Future. And we were joined by an incredible lineup of female franchise legends. We had Pip Wilkins, CEO of the British Franchise Association. We had Susie McCafferty, CEO of Platinum Wave. We had Lisa Stead, COO of Trafalgar Education, and we had the honor of being joined by some lovely franchisees as well. We had Sam Taker from Turtle Tots and Jill Dawson from Molly Maid. And I had the absolute privilege of being able to take my turn in listening, and it was really, really good. It was a real stellar lineup of people today, and some really fascinating things that came out of the conversation. Before we catch up on what that conversation is, I'd like to thank our amazing sponsors, Stagecoach and Drama Kids, for your fantastic support. So Jodie, what a fantastic show.
Sorry, I had to go on mute because we were feeding back again. But yeah, it was really, really great. And I got some really interesting information out of it. And the one thing I probably learned from all of that is I forgot that we were on a panel of women. So the minute you gave them options to ask as many questions and talk, we probably didn't leave enough time for chatting at the end, did we?
Absolutely. I mean, a few things that I thought were fantastic that really came across for me. First of all, I think that a lot of the challenges that were spoken about that women are facing are challenges that we just face as a franchise industry. So I think we've probably hopefully we've come a little bit of way, because I didn't really have to put on my lady hat, as it were, to empathize with those. For me, they were franchising challenges. I suppose the first thing that came across for me was family. And I think in franchising is our family, but I think that was certainly a challenge that came over that women perhaps have. But it was great to hear that also that that's spread across both genders as well. I mean, what did you think about the whole family issue? Do you think that remains centric to encouraging females into franchising?
I think that's probably one of the biggest things as a female is if you have a family or you're wanting to start a family, that is the first thing that enters your mind when you think about anything in your. I mean, I was a single parent for the best part of 15 years, so and any decision that I made about my career, about where I went, where I worked, was all centered around that child. So I just think that getting the message out there of how you can do this and still have that is the biggest message that we need to, you know, get out there to any female. Just like Pip alluded to it quite a lot, and I think she mentioned it quite a few times. It's the education. People need to understand that you can do it, and that this is the reason, and this is how you can, and this is the support that you're going to get from everybody out there, which I don't think people understand that. And then it becomes scary because you think to yourself, I mean, one of the questions that we had that I didn't ask was, I'm a single mom and I go to work and I get like, she can get claim benefits because for the childcare and things like that. How can I move into that? And that's the kind of way that women that have got families or, you know, are on their own think. So I just think, like Pip said a lot, you know, mentioned a lot, the education around how that's possible, and hearing from the likes of Sam, who was you know, was a single parent and still did it, you know, is really empowering for women.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it was really great to hear Lisa talk about that the family planning is part of the franchise planning. And those discussions should be part of that family discussion as a franchise. I think that that's really, really important for any family to recognize the fact that those discussions are part of a wider discussion. You know, we talk about a franchise life cycle and we talk about exit strategies, but it's so equally important to talk about how our family and how our work-life balance is going to progress through that journey. And I think that was one of the big things that came across, that should be really recognized across our industry.
No, definitely. I mean, ladies, I know that you didn't have to stay, but, you know, feel free if you want to jump in. I know it's the very first chat with the hat and it's our debrief session, but if you have got anything to add, feel free to chip in. But we have only got 10 minutes, so keep it brief.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm gonna this is something that Susie actually said, and she was talking about empathizing, listening, and multitasking. I mean, I do my best on the show to multitask and put things up, but you know, I definitely find it challenging, and I think it's really important because different people, whether they're men or women, but different people have different tasks, and certainly listening, empathizing and multitasking are skills that any franchisee could do well with having.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I guess the other thing that came across for me, which I think is an important thing to talk about as an industry, is, and I think that Jill actually spoke of this, that not all businesses are female friendly. And perhaps not all franchises are female friendly. And I think what came out of this for me is the fact that it's family is an important element to get into that, for it to become more female friendly. But it's interesting, you know, Pip mentioned this, the growth from 20% to 40%. I mean, obviously it's heading in the right direction to readdress the balance. Pip, do you think that's because more female-friendly franchises are growing, or because the industry is embracing gender equality better?
Both. I think more female-friendly franchises, have come to market in the last 5 to 10 years. So there's been a lot of growth in the personal services sector, and in the personal services sector, that's a lot of children's activity franchises that are much more flexible. I'm not going to call them lifestyle franchises, but they do offer more flexibility for somebody that's maybe coming back into work or into business after having a family. I disagree slightly with what you're saying in relation to businesses not being female friendly. I think there are a lot of brands that would like to see more females within their network. You know, they can, in some cases, outperform their male counterparts because they have different skill sets. So in some franchise opportunities, I think it lends itself really nicely to a woman that is, you know, kind of more empathetic. At the end of the day, we think very differently, and we work in very different ways. Women are more committed to looking at long-term success rather than kind of short-term wins. But we did lots of research when we launched our Empowering Women in Business event 10, 11 years ago on whether it was there was a lack of accessibility, I guess, for females coming into franchising, and whether the branding and the appearance of franchising was too masculine. And actually what came back was not that at all. It was much more. I just didn't know it was a thing, or, you know, it was a confidence issue. It was mindset change. And I think that's the thing. Women now are much more, fear of failure is less than it used to be. I think, you know, we've really embraced confidence and the ability to know that we don't need to have all of the answers. We can just show up authentically and get started.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Susie said that you don't need to do it all. And again, it goes for men or women. When you start a job or start becoming a franchisee, you know, we need to get into a position where we're saying to people, you don't need to prove yourself, and that you don't have to be good at everything. You don't have to get over these hurdles to prove that you can do it. You can just be part of a friendly network for anybody who is passionate about the industry and passionate about franchising. And I think it's really coming across that there is starting to become that change, because a lot of these issues, a lot of these questions, you know, seem to apply to both men and women. They're more confidence things, which men or women can feel. And it's just then a matter of mixing in the right skill sets and the right work-life balance for the great people that you've got in your business, you know, and whether they're men or women. But I think it's such a fantastic conversation. And I really like actually something that Sam said when we were talking about paternity or maternity leave as well. And I like the fact that yes, of course, you're not buying a job, so you can't have maternity or paternity pay, but you're building a business that's got a support structure around it to allow for greater flexibility during times in your life where, you know, your time is more precious and things change. And, you know, that can apply to, you know, mums and dads out there. You know, it's a real family thing. So I think what came across for me is some really, really good ideas that help franchising, you know, appeal to a wider group of people, and lovely ladies as well. Excellent. Well, look, I think we are coming towards the end, are we not, Jodie?
Yes, we are, Harvey. We did run over into your 10 minutes, so we do apologise.
That's okay. I was enjoying listening anyway, so practicing my listening skills. Well, look, so that brings us to the end of this episode of Chat to the Hat. It's been a real pleasure. I'd like to say a big thank you to Jodie and the team at Elite Franchise, the guests, and anybody who's watched this today and watches it in the future. And a special thank you goes out, of course, to our wonderful sponsors at Stagecoach and Drama Kids. I will remind people, in case they are watching this bit, that the next Elite Franchise Live will be Wednesday the 10th of September, and it will be coming live from Ideas Fest. So that sounds fantastic in Hertfordshire. So make sure you join us for that one. And until then, and this is how I'm going to end it, my hat's off to you all. There you go. Another hat-based pun.
Like Harvey, thank you.
Thank you.
You.